Hello and welcome everyone to this video. In this video, I will show you how to make a live wallpaper with Android. I will be using Java programming language. First, I will show you how to make a live wallpaper only using Java and how to animate that using a canvas. I mean, there are many tutorials on the internet how to do that. This is one of the best tutorials I've seen. And then I will show you how to make this live wallpaper show a 3D scene using openGL. And for that, I will be following these two tutorials here. There are also many good links in the internet. These are a very good two examples, and we will continue from there using our OpenGL code, which we developed during our series about OpenGL for Android. So let's start coding. So in Android Studio, we start a new project, and for that we choose an empty view activity. So let's call this new project add wallpaper, and we will be using this package name. I will save this project on my D drive on this location. As programming language, I will be using Java, and then also I will use a Groovy DSL here for settings. Then we click finish, and Android Studio will prepare a project for us. The first thing we need to do in this project is to add a wallpaper service to the manifest. So let's go to the manifest, and then we need to add a service tag. Let's put it below this activity tag here. We need a name to our service, and let's call it add wallpaper service, and then it should be enabled and exported, and then you can add a label to the service. This label will be displayed on the live wallpaper activity. So let's call it add wallpaper. And of course, we need a permission for that. And this permission, as you can see, called bind wallpaper. And then we need to add inside this intent filter an action from Android service wallpaper and then wallpaper service. And then we have the metadata tag here where we need to fill the name Android service wallpaper, and then here we can add a resource for our wallpaper, and this resource we'll put it in the XML directory and then wallpaper. So if you came here in the resources, we have the XML file, and then here we can add a new XML file, and let's call it wallpaper and save. So inside this XML, we can define some properties of our wallpaper. First, we need to put the namespace. Then we have again the label. Let's call it add wallpaper. And we can have a thumbnail which will be displayed in the activity where we select the wallpaper. So for here, I already added in this drawable folder a PNG of the logo of the channel, and I will use that. So this would be drawable 8ch. I will not be adding now preferences, so let me comment this. And now we have our settings. Let's create the service, which we, as you can see here, called add wallpaper service. And let me copy this name here, and we'll go to the Java, and then new Java class, and let's call it add wallpaper service. This wallpaper service should extend this wallpaper service class. And as you can see here, we need to implement some methods. So this method called onCreateEngine. And for the engine, we will also create a class. We will call it addEngine, and it will extend a wallpaper service engine. So in this class, we will override some methods. So the first method we will override is onCreate. Then we will also override onVisibilityChange and onDestroy. So inside the add wallpaper service, the onCreateEngine, we need now to return an instance from our engine, which is addEngine, and that's it. So what's left is actually to implement those methods here. Inside this engine, we will keep tracking of three variables. The first one is a surface holder. This will hold the surface which we will draw on top of it. And then we have a boolean for the visibility. So this boolean will be changed inside this onVisible change. Basically, will be used to draw the wallpaper if it's visible and not to draw it if it's not visible. And we will also have a handler to run our drawing task inside it. And here I will add a default constructor for addEngine. And inside this constructor, I will just initialize the handler. And then inside the onCreate, we will call the method of the parent class onCreate, and we will pass the surface holder. And of course, we will keep a reference to this surface holder. Let me refactor this variable here and also these two. And now in the onVisibility changed, we will also keep tracking with the visibility. So we will put our invisible equal to v, and then if visible, we will add a task for the handler. Let's call it draw task. And if the wallpaper is not visible, then we will remove this callback draw task. And in the onDestroy, we will call the parent method onDestroy, and then we also need to remove the callback draw task. Let me create this runnable, and inside this runnable we want to draw on the wallpaper. So let me put this method here at the bottom inside the class engine, and let me call this mDrawTask. So and that's it. Basically that's all what we need to set up our wallpaper. And now whenever our wallpaper is set, then this engine will be created, and the corresponding functions on create, on visibility changed, or on destroy will be called as defined by the lifecycle of this service. And as you can see here, whenever our wallpaper is visible, then we will have this runnable added to the handler, and then this runnable will be called, and that will be calling our method draw here. So inside this draw, we can put our live animation, and for that I will do just a simple animation here. So I will define a variable, an integer variable. Let me call it counter. I'll put it to 0. Then I will add a paint for the background and another one for the foreground. This will depend on what you want to animate. Now I will just show a simple animation where I will draw an arc, and the angle of this arc will change with time, so making an animation. So inside the draw, I will first check if the wallpaper is visible. So if it's not visible, we will do nothing. Let me put these variables here in the top. And in the constructor, I want to set the background, set the color to black, and for the foreground, let me correct the name here. I will put the color to red, and for both of them I will set the style to fill. So that's it here. Now in the draw, I will first get a canvas, and the canvas I will get it from the surface holder. It has a function called LockCanvas, which will return the canvas to draw on. And then here we will do our drawing. I will put that inside the try catch block, and if any error happens, I will just log the error message. After we finish drawing, we need to unlock the canvas. So we call the function unlock, and we pass the canvas to it as a parameter. Then we'll remove our drawing task, then schedule it again to run after 10 milliseconds, or I mean, that depends on how fast you want your animation to be. So here you can add the delay in milliseconds. I will put it now to 10. So, and that's it. So then you can see that this draw function will be called every 10 milliseconds. And what's left actually to do is to do our animation. As I said, I decided for a simple animation. So based on this counter, I will increase in a certain step, or maybe 5 here. This will represent our angle in degree. Since this is an angle, I will take it in the mode 360. Then I will draw a full rectangle. So starting from the upper corner and taking the whole width of the canvas and also the full height. So to fill the whole canvas. And for that, I will be using the background paint. So that will be a black color. Then I will draw an arc, and I will draw it starting from the top corner, and I will let it go over 400 pixels in the width and 400 pixels on the height. Then the starting angle will always be 0, and taking till our counter, I will put this use center to true, and then I will use the foreground paint. So this will be a red arc, and that's it. I will not use now a more complex animation, but you can imagine you can do whatever you want here. You can even have a movie drawn here if you like, or a GIF animation, whatever you want. And as you can see here, I haven't centered this arc in the middle of the scene. I just throw it in the top corner. So this is just a proof of concept that you can do an animation and you can do a live wallpaper using Android Java. But of course, the possibilities are unlimited here. I will show later even how you can make a 3D scene inside this wallpaper. That's it for now. You can run this and you will have the wallpaper setup. However, I found it always difficult to find the wallpaper and the settings to set this wallpaper. And for that, I will be using our main activity. In this main activity, I want to add a button and then to handle a click on this button. So I will be adding a function called onClick, and it should take a view. And then inside the layout that should be here in layout activity main. Inside this layout, I want to add a button. So you can see here we have button. I'll just drag it, drop it here. And let me set the text of this button to set wallpaper, and then the onClick handle to onClick. So now when this button is clicked, this function will be called. And then here inside this onClick, we want to start the activity to set the wallpaper. And for that, I need an intent. And this intent will be for the wallpaper manager. And then I will choose this action, live wallpaper choose. And then we want to start this activity. Now let's start the emulator and run the application inside the emulator. So I forgot to remove this label here, but that's not a problem. So let's click on this button and this button will start this activity. So this activity is defined inside the Android system. We did not define it, we just starting it. So as you can see here, inside this activity, we have our wallpaper and it has this image here, which we put, and this is another live activity, which I was experimenting on before. So let me choose this activity. And as you can see, it's our arc, which is animated over the time. And if I set, okay, set as wallpaper, so it will ask me, do you want to put it to home screen or also home and lock screen? I'll choose it now only for home screen, and that's it. So now if I close this application, you can see that here we have the home screen, we have our live activity animating here in the background, and your Android system button here in front of that. And that's it. Now we have a live activity running. In the second part of this tutorial, I will show you how you can make this live activity here, draw an OpenGL scene. And for that, I will be using the code we developed in our series about OpenGL ES for Android. So this is the series here. I'll put the link to it on the bottom. And currently we have like 13 videos inside this series. Later, I hope to add even more in this series. So first, let me then close this application here. And I already made a copy of it, so now we can change here. So as I explained in the openGL ES series, the first thing we want to do is to come to this Android manifest and add a use feature, and we want to use openGL ES 3.2 as we were doing in our openGL series, and that's all here. Then this is the path of our openGL series. Then I will copy the latest code from there and put it inside our project here. So inside me.learn. So now we can see when here it's refreshed, and then we have now the OpenGL code from our OpenGL series. The first thing we want to do here is to derive a class from the GL service view. I will add this class here at the bottom, but still inside our engine class. As you can see, this wallpaper GL view extend the GL surface view, and the surface view comes with the Android SDK, as we've seen in the OpenGL series. So the init function, which is called in the constructor of this GL service view, you can see that the GL surface view will call this function getHolder to get a surface holder, which will be used to do the rendering callbacks. And what we want to do is actually to replace this function getHolder and return the holder which we get from our wallpaper service. And as you can see here, so this function, we are overriding the getHolder and we return the variable mHolder. And we also added this function onDestroy, where we call the onTheAttach from window. And that's it for this class. So now let's remove these variables here, because we will be using the OpenGL service and the class ascene, which we developed in our OpenGL series to do the rendering. So, and then let me add the wallpaper GL view here. And of course, a scene object, let's call it mScene. This we have developed in our OpenGL series. So now inside the engine, we don't need to initialize anything here. And then after initializing the mHolder, we initialize the mGL view, and for that we need a context. The context will be our service. Then here we can initialize our OpenGL scene. So if you watched our OpenGL series, let me show the project for that. We initialize our scene usually inside the onCreate of our activity. And there we initialize an instance of our scene and then our objects which we want to draw, and we add them to the scene. This we need to do now here. So let me initialize the scene, and for that we need an activity. We don't have an activity, so I will pass again our wallpaper service, and then we need the OpenGL surface, and for that I will pass the GL view. In our OpenGL series, we have some buttons which we use to move inside the scene. So I will put these here all to null, And we also had this text view to show the frame rate. We will also put this to null. So you can see that we already now have problems here since our scene expect an activity and we are passing a service for that. And that's happened because when I started the OpenGL series, I did not have this application in mind. So now what I will do, I will change this activity to context. And I also did not expect a null as an input here for these buttons. So I will need also to change that. I will actually check if one of these buttons is not null. Then I will initialize this input, which usually take care of the click on these buttons. So now these buttons are not used anywhere else. What's left is to take care of this upper right text view when it's null. And you can see that we only use it inside this update frame per second. Inside this update frame per second, you can see that here we expect an activity and we want to use this run on UI thread function. Activity is now a context, so let me refactor that. I will call it context instead of activity. And here I will cast it to an activity. However, I will not run this unless this upper right text is not null. So if it's null, I will not run this code here below. So that's it. So now we have our scene setup. We can add the objects which we need. I will add a skybox as before, and then the earth and the sun. And as you can see, we have these two functions, also move earth and move sun. I will copy them also from our tutorial, and they use this variable called theta. The angle of the earth has moved around the sun. So now we have initialized our GL surface and our scene. So now we'll change the life cycle here on visibility changed. So if our wallpaper is visible, then we will call on resume on our GL surface. And if it's not, then we will call pause. And that's it here. For the on destroy, we will call the super on destroy and then on destroy of the OpenGL surface. This whole draw function we don't need because the drawing will now happen inside the OpenGL scene. So that's all what we need now. Let's try to run. So I used wallpaper service, which is the class we are extending. So I should have used add wallpaper service here. That's the error here. And let me now run. So for the sun, it seems that here I have an extra variable. Now it runs. Let me make this bigger and let's click on it. And now if I clicked on this wallpaper, nothing is happening, but I can see now I have made a mistake here. So this should be on resume. Let me rerun now. So let me check what's the error and I will come back to you. So I already found the errors. So I found two mistakes which I made. First, I already copied this OpenGL code from our OpenGL tutorial 12, but I forgot to copy the assets. So now I copied the assets, which include the images and the shaders which we need. And the second bug I did was that I forgot to call this on visibility changed on the super class. So let me now run. And let me make this a little bit bigger. Click on set wallpaper, select our wallpaper, and now you can see our scene from tutorial 12 from our OpenGL series where we implemented the fog lighting model. You can see now that the side of the earth away from the sun is darker, and here where there is more light from the side facing the sun, and also we have this specular effect which we implemented also in tutorial 12. Now we can click set as wallpaper. Let's choose it as home screen, and now if we closed our application, you can see that we have our live wallpaper, OpenGL, and yeah, of course, you have the buttons here of the Android system. So I already connected a Samsung Galaxy phone. Let me run the application on it. And here from the running devices, we can click add and then select the Samsung phone. And as you can see now, we see the screen of the phone. I will go to the phone and I will click on set wallpaper. Of course, I can also click here from this screen, but I will do that from the phone. And now you can see on the Samsung phone, we already now have the OpenGL scene running. So we can set it as wallpaper. And now if I return to the home screen, you can see our OpenGL scene on the phone. So that's all for this video. I hope you like it. Please don't forget to give it a thumb up and subscribe the channel, and I hope to see you in the next videos. Bye.